Hi everyone, Magda from Coacharia here, and with me today is one of our alumni slash newly minted associate trainer, Tracy Brown. Hi Tracy.
Hello.
So today we're going to have a little discussion around EMCC applications. So for those of you who are watching this and you're currently enrolled with Coacharia, the good news is that a lot of what you will hear is going to be covered in your coach training program in one way or another, because we have integrated the requirements of EMCC applications into our coach training program. And what that means that for those of you who want to apply for a coach accreditation with EMCC, you can automatically do that as part of fulfilling your requirements with Coacharia. That might sound a little bit confusing. That's okay. Please talk to your trainer or reach out to me for more details. But long story short, if you're currently enrolled, this stuff is much easier. But for those of you who are watching either as alumni or as people outside of Coacharia who have completed their training elsewhere and you want to apply for accreditation with EMCC, this little video applies to you as well. So, Tracy, you have a senior practitioner accreditation with EMCC, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So you just recently went through this process, and for those of you who have downloaded the application, it does look a little daunting, not gonna lie. EMCC is, in a good way, hardcore about coaching. It's one of the reasons we love them. They really care about the coach's background and the coach's experience and approach, and diversity and inclusion as well. So EMCC is a really great organization to be affiliated with. So congratulations, Tracy, on your senior practitioner. It's awesome.
Thank you.
But yeah, I'm assuming, I know because I was in contact with you. When you got your application for EMCC, you were like, whew.
Yeah.
Where do I start?
Like, well,
Yeah,
yes,
this is gonna be fun.
Having said that, even though it is a little bit daunting, I have to say that it was an incredible experience for me and as well as for my coaching practice, because it really had me drill down to a lot of things and think about a lot of things in a very whole way that I hadn't necessarily had to do and put down on paper before.
Yeah, which is why we're actually excited about the fact that we have incorporated this into the coach training program. Regardless of whether you want to pursue EMCC accreditation or not, because all the things that EMCC asks for are, I mean, they make us better coaches, I think, but also it's just good reflective practice for anyone, frankly, on this crazy work that we do as coaches. So just to briefly kind of set the stage, the main requirements, in addition to, you know, a log, personal details, like all the, you know, demographic, easy stuff that you have to fill in on any application, the components of the EMCC accreditation application for individuals, I should say, because they do have different levels. So for individuals like Tracy or myself, which, oh my gosh, I need to apply for EMCC. This is so embarrassing. And I'm not gonna edit this later because hopefully you'll put pressure on me. Anyway, so the components of an EMCC application for accreditation for individuals are client testimonials, case studies, reflections on your coaching, and a personal statement. So I think maybe let's kind of go in reverse order, actually. Let's talk about the personal statement. So Tracy, can you let us know kind of what that's all about, and maybe what yours included, if you don't mind sharing a little bit?
Sure. The personal statement is about yourself, about approach to coaching. I included what I loved about coaching, what I learned from it. The really important thing as well to emphasize in a personal statement is your approach to diversity and inclusion. And that should be fairly meaty. So in other words, you can't just say, I embrace diversity and inclusion but it's really about your own, how you implement it within your practice, what your own beliefs are, especially now at this time. I think that it's quite important. And then that also, just to mention, should be evidenced throughout the application, even within the case studies and reflections as well.
Because it's important, not just because it's required.
Yes.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think when I was talking to EMCC during the audit that Coach Arya went through, what I thought was really cool is a suggestion that they had that you should write this kind of personal statement at the beginning of your coach training journey, so you can think about, you know, why am I here? Why am I pursuing this in the first place? What does coaching mean to me? And what are my goals? And then perhaps, you know, review it at the end of your journey and see if everything is still the same. Probably not, because as we both learned, coach training is really a journey in self-awareness and personal growth. So I think not necessarily the views or beliefs change, but your approach to them changes, and your perception of what's possible, I think, increases when you do coach training. So yeah, for those of you who are kind of watching this as preparation for your coach training journey, yeah, sit down, and regardless, again, of EMCC or another credential you're going for, write down a personal statement. What does coaching mean to you? Why do you want to be a coach? What are you hoping to get out of both the training and being a coach? And then, you know, check in halfway through your journey at the end of it and rewrite as necessary. But I think it's like a nice way to also look at your own personal growth.
Absolutely. And actually, the personal statement is one of the first things on the application. So I wrote it first, and I went through the entire application process and went back and revised my personal statement. So it's also kind of nice to bookend the application by doing that as well.
Nice. I like that. Okay. So the next two things I want to talk about are the case studies and reflections. And up to you if you want to talk about it together, because they do kind of blend together in terms of there's 5 of each required. And what we recommend that people do is, you know, at Coach Arya, for every 30 hours of coach training, you have to submit a recording of a coaching conversation. So regardless of anything else, we evaluate people based on PCC markers and coaching competencies. We evaluate them every 30 hours of class. So what's, you know, to kind of get everything going, what we recommend is that when you submit your recording and your self-evaluation on the recording, that you also submit the case study and the reflection at the same time. So you kind of, you know, are focused on the one coaching conversation. It's just easier to kind of process. So that's my 2 bits. Tracy, can you tell us a little bit what the case studies are and what the reflections are, and what do you recommend that people do?
Yes. So first of all, one of the things that I realized when I was doing this is that reflecting, so even before you start your application process, reflecting after each coaching conversation is key, not only to be great as a coach, but it's also really helpful when you're going through this process. So the case study is a little more technical of an approach, because you're sort of analyzing it as an overview of what happened in the coaching conversation, and you're referencing the competence indicators throughout that. The reflections you're also referencing as well, but those are way more personal. So that's really talking about what came up for you and how it has affected your what your learning was as a coach, how your practice has been influenced, all of those things. The other thing is that the reflections don't have to be about a coaching conversation that you have had. It can be, I mean, certainly it's easier if you're doing a case study anyhow, and you can do a reflection from that, then do that. But it also can be if you read a great book that has changed the way that you coach, or you've watched an amazing webinar, one of the Coach Arya ones, and you've learned a couple new things about coaching from that, then you can reflect on those. And the key thing there is, again, just showing how you have then implemented that into your coaching conversations.
Okay, so case studies, kind of technical and about specific conversations, whereas reflections can be a whole bunch of things, including on a particular coaching conversation.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
And, for those of you who attend our webinars regularly, and all of you should because they're awesome, we do record all of them just like this one, and you can see them on our YouTube channel. Recently, for the past few months, we have actually added a step to the CPD CCE claim process, where we ask, what have you learned in this webinar and how will you apply it to your coaching practice? Largely, if not wholly, because of what EMCC requires in the application process. Like Tracy, I think reflection is amazing, and I need to make more space for it. And especially recently, like, I'm all over the place. Coachariat's growing, which is great, but it also means that brain space is getting smaller and smaller, and those pauses are so necessary. And I feel like you learn so much more in the 5 minute silence after you've done or read or heard something than you do during the thing when it's happening. So the whole motivation around us collecting the reflections now after the webinars is to kind of get people used to this reflective practice, which we think is awesome. But what's also really cool is that if you did claim any of those webinar CCEUs or CPD credits, you can actually look back at what you wrote and maybe use those reflections as part of the application. So maybe you even have your 5 already and you didn't even know it. So anyway.
Yeah. Oh, and on that note, you do have to show a certain amount of hours of professional development as well. So that's another reason to make sure to do that and to track the webinars that you've watched and to continue watching them, because those count.
Awesome. So continue claiming those credits, but even if you don't claim the credits, just keep track. And we have tons and tons of webinars coming up, always every Wednesday at 9 p.m. India. And we use India because they don't change time zones, unlike the rest of the world. I never know what time it is anywhere except for India, which is funny because I'm in Chicago. But yeah, please tune in every Wednesday. And we are recording this in the beginning of September 2020. And it's just a couple of weeks prior to our massive event, Awake, Aware, Arise. So if you're watching this, take a look in the notes for a link. And if you're watching this later, that's okay. There's recordings on our channel, so you can still experience the wonders that Awake, Aware, Arise surely will be. Cool. So we talked about personal statement. We talked about case studies and reflections. And of course, like I mentioned before, you'll have to submit what experience you've had, what professional hours you've done, the training. You'll have to submit a log of the coaching you've done. So that's all kind of par for the course. But last requirement is client testimonials. So that sounds a little scary, actually. Talk about those, Tracy. Well, what are they? What's required?
Yes. So the client testimonials are basically just from your clients talking about their experience with coaching. So it can be something that's written up on a company letterhead if it's from someone at a company, or it can be an email. But you have to include, I believe, the screenshot of the entire email so that they can see the address and everything else. And that's it. And I actually didn't find it hard to approach people and ask for them. And I think that it also has to outline how many hours that you've coached them and on the dates as well. So what I did do is one of my client testimonials was actually the owner of the company where I worked for a number of years and coached a number of clients there. So he gave me a testimonial kind of as an umbrella for what I had done for the company, and that counted as well as only one testimonial.
Okay.
But the hours I was able to count as with his sign off, if that makes sense.
Do you think it's better to approach clients really close after you finish the coaching with them, whether it's ongoing, like, after one session or, sorry, after a session, or do you think it's better to kind of ask people who maybe would have hopefully applied the things they've learned during coaching already, or does it not matter?
I think it makes sense to do it after you've had a number of sessions with them, because it would be hard. I mean, it's a stronger testimonial if you've had a journey with them as opposed to a few sessions. I found like the testimonials that I submitted, 3 of them were still ongoing clients. And then one of them, we had already finished all of our sessions. I don't know if that answered your question. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's a personal preference thing. I mean, for me, yeah. I ask for feedback all the time. I love feedback. I get a lot of it from a lot of people, and it's okay because you can't improve without feedback. But it's just weird to be like, hey, can you write me a letter? For some people. So, but you should do it. We need to do it. And actually, a little tip that I have as the marketer that I am, when you are asking for these, they're for a particular purpose. They're for EMCC and they are private. But depending on who the client is and what the content of the testimonial is, suss it out on a case-to-case basis. But these are valuable pieces of proof that you know what you're doing. So if you have a website, include them on your website with permission. Like, don't just copy things and publish them. That's not cool in any country, in any culture. Always ask permission. But if you don't have a website or you don't want to put them on your website either, you can also ask for recommendations independently on LinkedIn. These things are little and maybe we don't pay attention to them, some people, but like they do matter in general. And when you are, especially a coach who is going out on their own, they're incredibly important. It's the first kind of way that a potential client can see that, yes, you legitimately know what you are doing. So when you ask for those, just think about how else will you be able to use them.
Yeah, and I did use a few of snippets with permission of those on my website. So it definitely helped. Do you mind if I highlight one more thing?
No, please, go for it.
For me? Okay, perfect. So one of the things that's really important to do before, people will likely already be familiar with the competence framework, but especially before starting the application, go through it again and do it in detail, because what you are needing to do within the reflections as well as the case studies is you're evidencing for whatever level that you're applying for, whether it's foundation or senior practitioner, that you are evidencing all of those indicators within there and you're actually referencing them. So it's really, really helpful to look at that before deciding which ones you're going to select, because you want to make sure that you're doing the full range. And some conversations are going to evidence these more than others. Some may evidence a lot of them, which is great. But that is something that I found I hadn't done. And I did have to sort of midway through the process rewrite one of my case studies and use a different example. So just give a little bit of advice to do that beforehand.
That's really helpful. And I will definitely make sure that wherever you're watching this, I'll put a link to the competence framework so you have a quick reference. And again, depending on when you're watching this, there will hopefully be a mini course on learn.coacharya.com, where we'll have all the different components of the application listed, so that instead of having to go through, the one giant document, you can kind of pace yourself and see tips for each particular section, and you can complete them kind of as you go along. And at the very end, you have a finished application. So again, putting pressure on myself to make sure it gets done. But if you're watching this and you can't find it, look in the notes below or next. I'm not really sure where it's going to be, but look somewhere around the video, or just always hop on coacharya.com and you'll see a little chat bot where either the bot or someone who is around and wants, of course we want to chat. Someone who's around and can chat is available, will help you put you in the right direction. So that will be, nice and easy. I'm talking a lot today. One thing I did want to mention is, EMCC is is really thorough with this stuff, much more thorough than I expected. So not that I'm suggesting that people are going to kind of, just write this and blow it off, because I think for people who go through coach training, this is a passion, and it's a commitment of time, of money, of resources, of brain power, of emotions. So I think, you should take the application as seriously as you took your decision to become a coach in the first place, because there's so much value in going through the application, first and foremost. But second, EMCC does go through this. They have auditors who review everything, and yeah, make the process enjoyable for them too. Show them your passion, show them how you're improving the world through coaching and through your clients. So that's my 2 cents. Tracy, any closing words?
Just again, it's an incredible experience. It is time consuming, but in the best way. And I came out of that, it sounds like one of those pat statements, but I mean it 100%. I came out of that a better coach. So enjoy. Awesome.
Thank you so much, Tracy. And thank you for everyone who is watching or has watched this. We appreciate you and your time. If you are thinking of becoming a coach and you're just watching this for background, excellent. Please join us. Coach Arya does lots of coach training programs. We start them basically every month at this point. So there's sure to be something in your time zone with one of our excellent trainers like Tracy. So exciting. So yeah, please check out coacharya.com. I will link to our events calendar, both for coach training as well as for our free webinars in the notes. And I look forward to seeing you here next time at whatever other excellent, helpful thing that we'll think of.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Bye, everyone.